Well, hello, fellow baseball nuts, and a big warm welcome to episode 7, lucky 7, no less, of the Johnny and Josh show. And it's certainly lucky because we got Big Dave back in the house. Great to have the four boys reunited. Big Dave, you're looking shaven, you're looking clean cut, you look like
shaved
a different
and showered for you.
Did you?
Dave, I didn't know if you were going to make it because thought you'd be still on your Yankees rant. It was like Tolstoy in rant version.
I felt so guilty about missing the show. I feel like I had to just go on forever to make up for it.
Well, and not only that, but to royally piss off a few of our regular listeners. Lovely Jan Wallace, who's been with us since the days of Channel 5 baseball, was very upset at your rant, young man. You're going to have to go out and offer an appeasement of some sort to young Jan. Not coming. Moving on. Well, Jan, I just want to offer you a sincere apologies to any Yankee fans out there for Dave getting a little bit out of control, but you're obviously not going to get one from him. Anyway, let's move on swiftly. We've got loads to look forward to. Quick COVID update, and we've done a very detailed one this week. Weekly testing, 10,330 tests conducted. No positive tests amongst Major League players and staff members, and only one positive test, and that was a staff member at an alternate site. Boys, that is fantastic news.
It is fantastic news because 5 out of 30 the teams so far have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And since this whole COVID program protocol began, since the season began, we've had 44 positive tests, 27 players and 17 staff. So, I mean, I like to say it's a success so far, the way MLB have been handling this. Boys, your thoughts?
Well, 44 positive tests from 145,647 tests. Yeah, I think that can be considered successful. When you say full tests for 5 clubs, it actually only means 85%. Very bizarre. 85% or more is perceived to be full. I love it when stats could just be made up to mean anything. But anyway, it's good news. COVID is not having a horrible effect on the sport. So let's move straight on because we've got loads to get through. And let's focus, first of all, on your trivia this week. Is it COVID related, Eric?
No, nothing to do with COVID, thankfully. And by the way, the Canadian border still closed. Moving on. The trivia for today. We're going to talk about Albert Pujols a little later in the show because I have some Albert Pujols trivia for you. In 2003, Mr. Pujols have won the National League batting title, but he only won it by a percentage of 0.002. 0.0002, beg your pardon. So he won it with a 359 batting average in 2003. But my question to you, gentlemen, who did he beat out for that National League batting title by 0.0002? Was it A, Barry Bonds? Was it B, Todd Helton? Or was it C, Larry Walker? Answer in the show. So it's one of the closest batting titles that the National League ever saw, and went down to the wire. But that's your trivia for the day. Moving on.
Okay, well, it's the leadoff batter, which, of course, now is traditionally the news roundup. Right, well, we've moved the news to this section, and there's loads of news to get through, guys. And the first one's got to be Albert. You've just referenced him, Eric. Albert Pujols released. It is the end of an era. You can't exactly blame the Angels, but it saddens me that a man of his greatness is not sort of seeing out a whole season, JC. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the criticism is really fair, and there's criticism from sort of the top of baseball echelons. You've seen Pedro Martinez, David Ortiz all complaining. But let's be realistic about it. In a way, this was Albert's decision. The Angels said, look, we'd love to have you as a part-time player on the bench, but Jared Walsh is our first baseman of the future. Your time has come. And if you want to take that role, great. We will continue to have you on our team with open arms. Keep in mind, he has a 10-year, $10 million personal services contract with the Angels. So it behooves both parties to leave on good relations. But Albert, he has pride. He thinks he can still start at the major league level. His OPB plus, 100 is average. He's like in the 70s. So he's a well below average player now. I don't think he's going to find another team to play. I think he'll be disappointed by that. And, I think we've maybe seen the end of his career.
Dave, it's never tougher than that moment of saying, I'm done. I haven't got anything else to offer. very few sportsmen get it right. Do you feel Albert's got this wrong?
I don't know about Albert. What I do wonder is what it was like behind the scenes in the way this was fleshed out, because you've got a player like Albert, who's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, and some argue is the best first baseman of all time. Some are, that some people do argue that. But what I wonder is, how do you let a guy like that leave? I mean, you have to bring him out for another game and let people know and let him walk off the field with some cheers. This was a very unceremonious departure, and it does make you wonder just how acrimonious it got. Obviously, as Josh pointed out, there's nowhere for him to play. He can't play at first because they got Walsh there. He can't DH there because they have Ohtani. There's literally nowhere for him to play. But shouldn't he have had an opportunity to come out and say one last goodbye and have a few last at-bats as an Angel?
But I think that's his choice. Again, I don't see him as the victim here. I feel like the Angels offered him, I wouldn't have been surprised if they even offered him that opportunity, but this was a matter of pride. And let's be honest about this, right, guys? Albert Pujols, you're saying he's one of the greatest first basemen of all time, maybe the Albert Pujols of the Cardinals era. But you look at his Angels career, he was a mildly above average over the course of that contract. He was not a star. He was a one-time All-Star with the Angels. It was a perfect example of why you don't give long-term contracts for past performance, which is what the Angels were doing. It wasn't good for the Angels. And I think the Angels, my guess, and I rarely take the side of management, but my guess is that they offered him a lot of opportunity to do this gracefully. And Albert is a very proud player. And you're right, Dave, when he was at the top of his game, he was one of the greatest of all time. And that's what's in his mind, not the fact that for the past handful of years, he's been a below average player.
Well, as we bow out with Albert, let's just focus on a career of batting average 298, hits 3,253, home run 667, and runs batted in 2,112. No question, a Hall of Famer. Eric, you've got a story.
The thing is, as well, about my theory is that what the rumors going around is maybe he goes to Chicago White Sox to be reunited with Tony La Russa, who he still has a good relationship with. Doubtfully. Maybe he goes
to, he's not going to play first base. What's he going to play?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess he could DH some.
He could DH, but then there was a rumor about him going to Cincinnati because Joey Votto just broke his thumb. He's out for a month plus, but there's no DH in that. Or does he just retire? And we that there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's
he can go to Korea.
The best stat that I saw about him, he got hits against more than 10% of every pitcher that ever pitched in the major leagues in the history of Major League Baseball. More than 10%. One out of every 10 pitchers that ever pitched Major League Baseball.
Impossible.
It was the stat du jour of Twitter.
And of course, one of the
get on your social media.
One of the few remaining players that has played against the Montreal Expos. So there you go. Moving on.
Worst contract in baseball history? Yes or no?
Not the worst, because he did have some value, but it was definitely a failure. There was no doubt. And anyone could have told you that when he signed that contract. Corner infielders do not age well, and to give that lengthy a contract, he's over 40 now.
The Cardinals knew. They knew.
Okay, guys. Well, from an aging hitter on the way out, let's focus on a pitcher very much at the beginning of his career. John Means, no means feats. No means no. You know what I'm getting at. What an extraordinary night and a meteoric rise. 3-year rise from non-prospect to all-star to Orioles ace to a no-hitter. John Means, how good was that?
Yeah, it was a fantastic outing. You look at it. First off, he faced the minimum number of hitters, 27 hitters, only the 12th pitcher to do that and not get a perfect game. The reason for that was there was a wild pitch / pass ball. Runner gets on. That runner gets thrown out. 27 batters. But, I broke down that game, watched it very closely. And it's a reminder. We talked about it on the last show about velocity and how everyone throws so hard. And that isn't what makes you a successful pitcher. John Means showed what makes you a successful pitcher. The guy was sitting around 93 miles an hour, which is relatively average, but his changeup at 85 that has the same rotation was just so filthy. And he was also hitting his spots with the curve and the slider. So when you have 4 pitches and you have command over those pitches and you're able to change speeds, you're going to have a great day. But this was even more special than that. And we're looking at an era of more common no-hitters, right? We've had 4 actual no-hitters at this point. The last time, and then the 5th with Madison Bumgarner, which is the no-hitter. The last time something like this occurred was 1917, this early in the season. I mean, we're seeing just the domination of pitchers. And I know I've been one to say, look, hitters need to adjust. They either need to adjust quickly or something needs to be figured out, because the game is becoming really a pitcher-dominated sport.
And I do feel for him to be so close to a perfect game, which, as we all know, is the ultimate for a pitcher. But, I mean, it's like London buses at the moment, guys, because if there's one coming along, there's 2. You've just mentioned how many we've had this season. But in 1 week, we've got 2 no-nos with Wade Miley.
This one to me, Goldie, is even more special than Means is, right? Means is early in his career. He's already establishing himself now as probably a top-line pitcher. You got Wade Miley, you know, pretty much a journeyman lefty, 34 years old, who's sort of inching towards the end of his career. And here he is coming out with such a special night. Those are the ones that are meaningful, right? You think of For Love of the Game, the movie with Kevin Costner and John C. Reilly. Did not love that movie, but this is that sort of feeling, like, you know, you're at the end of your career, you're looking for that one special moment, and Miley got it. And it's so I'm really thrilled for him. Not thrilled for the Indians, who clearly are struggling. They're, you know, on the wrong end of 2 no-hitters now, but definitely tip of the hat to Miley.
Here's the stat as well, because you guys were just mentioning before that the record for most no-hitters in an entire season is 7. And that's, which we've done 3 times. And now we've already had 4. We're only in May. So will we see be broken?
Okay, I am going to move this on, but I'm also going to take it away from the purist point of view and point out this wonderful story with regards to Wade Miley. And that was on the Thursday, prior to him pitching that no-hitter on the Friday, his son, his 4-year-old son, Jeb, gave him a Incredible Hulk temporary tattoo. And he goes out the next day and pitches like a superhero. That's what happens when you've got a father and son relationship. They turn you into a superhero. That's a completely true story. His son gave him an Incredible Hulk tattoo. I love that. That's a great story.
It was a removable tattoo, Dave. Don't worry. He didn't get down there to his local tattoo.
We don't want to have to put him in the special section.
Okay, moving on. Tony La Russa, manager of the Chicago White Sox, a lot of raised eyebrows when he was brought back into the game at the managerial level, having not managed since 2011, and slightly worrying, guys, that Tony doesn't seem to be on top of this extra innings rule. He didn't avoid using Liam Hendricks in the bottom of the ninth as a base runner. The last thing you want to be doing with your elite closer. Is this cause for concern for Chicago White Sox fans?
I don't think it is, but I'll tell you what is a cause for concern if you're a Chicago White Sox fan. That the other day he intentionally walked Albert Pujols. That is the problem you have if you're a Chicago White Sox fan. Believe me.
I mean, the bottom line is Tony La Russa is playing in around 2002. Like, that's where his mind's at. He's like, why are they putting someone on second base? Albert Pujols is still the best player in baseball. He needs to bring himself into 2021.
We need to show some respect for Tony La Russa with all that he's achieved in the game. But it did make me laugh. I mean, I sort of relate to him. You know, all these changes. Oh, it's too much to it.
Did you know that?
Ball.
Just curious. Did you know that?
Did I know the? Oh, did I know the rule?
We'll ask both of you. Johnny, did you know that?
I'll be honest. No, I didn't.
No, I didn't either. And I'll admit, I have gotten rules wrong. My last international game I ever played for Great Britain, I was on first base. Someone hits a line drive to the third baseman. He catches it. I'm off the base. He throws to first to try and double me off. He throws it into the stands. And so, you know, I'm supposed to go to second base, right? So I go to second base. I didn't even realize the rule that even though the ball was dead and it was out of play, I had to go back to first base, even though I was halfway to second already, touch the bag, and then go as if I am tagging up in that situation. Made no sense to me. It seems like a total counterintuitive rule. And so I ended up getting out in that situation. And the bottom line of it is there's so many rules to baseball. I think you need to know the rule with the runner on second base, because that's one that's so new and one that everyone should have gone through the protocol of understanding. But I'm telling you, you know, even I'm not the best of us, even, you know.
I like to think that Tony La Russa is a goldfish of Major League Baseball.
La Russa
That's not fair on anyone. That's not fair on it. It's certainly not.
There are no winners in that statement.
La Russa is old enough where people have to. You got to produce La Russa. So if you're a bench coach and there's something like that, you've got to let him know because he's not going to know it.
I agree with you, Dave.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a team error.
Yeah.
That's not just on Lewis.
Moving on.
Okay, well, Tony's in his 70s, but Willie Howard Mays Jr., nicknamed the Say Hey Kid, has just turned 90, guys, on May the 6th, and that officially makes him the oldest living baseball Hall of Famer. Just how good is Willie Mays in the history of the sport, JC?
I mean, top 5 for sure. It's interesting in his era, people would talk about him. Who's the best center fielder in New York? You know, is it Duke Snyder? He was the best by far. He was the best by far. It was ridiculous that anyone suggested a 5-tool player in the era where there were very few 5-tool players, brought so much energy to the game, brought so much dynamism to the sport.
Yeah.
He will always be remembered. It's great that he's still around. He's still, it's a link to an era that is quickly departing.
22 seasons, so not that surprising that he's showing this longevity. An incredible career over an incredible period of time. And you do look at his stats: career batting average in north of 300, hits 3,283, 660 home runs, almost 2,000 runs batted in, and 338 stolen bases. You said it, JC. 5-tool, one of the all-time greats.
Just want to add one last thing. One of my closest friends growing up is Willie Mays' personal lawyer, and Willie Mays does so much philanthropy. You know, he has his own nonprofit. He does a lot of work in the community. And you have to remember that the fact that he's been around so long and he's been doing so much for the community puts him in the pantheon for that as well, too, about good works from baseball players.
Okay, let's get an update. A view to Akil, our good man, Akil Badu. How's he getting on, Eric?
It's much Badu, but nothing. Still, since her last recording, Akil Badu went 1 for 14, but with 1 RBI.
Okay.
And that was a sac fly. So he's been benched 2 games. He's now batting 195. Hello, Toledo. Mud Hens.
Keep in mind, though, the average batting average, the median batting average in the major leagues is 233 this year. So, yes, he's below the Mendoza line, he's below average, but compared to other players, he's not as bad as what we would have been in the
Hey, Josh, are we going to have to readjust the Mendoza line?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to create a new line.
That's a,
Yeah, what should we call it?
I think it's the Bergen line.
The Badu
Do
line.
you know who Bill Bergen is?
No,
he has the most at bats in the history of Major League Baseball with the lowest batting average for his career. I think he hit 184 for his career.
Speaking of Mendoza line, by the way, Miguel Cabrera is actually below the Mendoza line as well, but he finally tied Babe Ruth. Took him a week of being over, but he's now tied Babe Ruth with most career base hits.
Do you think he's next to go after Pujols?
Yeah,
I mean, do you think he's short for the majors?
Goodbye, Miguel. And sadly, Miguel just needs 130 odd to get 3,000. Not going to happen. You know, it's
yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Okay, right, let's just focus on one quick story. Dave, this is one I wanted to definitely get in. The New York Mets have been having their issues, whether it be on-field issues, whether it be issues with the bat, and now they seem to be running into rats, or was it a raccoon, or was it a possum? I believe this was on Friday, middle of the 7th. Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil suddenly hot-footed down the tunnel, and they came back saying that they'd seen a rat or raccoon. What can you tell us about? What's going on?
Well, first of all, I had the TV on mute, and all of a sudden, I see McNeil bolting down into the tunnel, and I'm like, it's either something going on or he really has to go to the bathroom because he was motoring. But something happened in that tunnel between Lindor and McNeil. We don't know what. McNeil is a bit of a hothead. He's a guy who believes he should have a base hit every time he gets up. And every time he doesn't get a base hit, you can see it in his eyes. You know, he's furious. But something happened. And after the game, this was great. Lindor is giving a press conference. And he comes out and he starts talking about how they were debating whether or not there was a New York rat in the tunnel. Have you ever seen a New York rat? It's unbelievable. Like he had this big smile on his face, or if it was a raccoon. And some of the media were taking this extremely seriously. How could you say that? You're giving us this ridiculous story. But what I took out of it was these guys had some kind of exchange down in the tunnel. They may or may not have thrown punches, but almost immediately after the game, the entire team got on board on the story to sell the press, and they executed it perfectly. Both guys came out. McNeil, of course, he made the, was it a possum? And the press really doesn't like it, but I see it as a sign of team unity and of getting over whatever skirmish there was really quickly. He said, hey, if you bring McNeil out here, I'll give him a kiss on the cheek. But the media, they got like Todd Zeal, who's a former first baseman himself, who's on the post-game show of SNY. How could they say that? Did they expect anybody to believe it? Guys, you don't get it. They're having fun with it. They're together. It's over. And roll with it. But the press can't get over themselves here. It's crazy.
JC, we don't, we never turn our nose up as a good bench clearance, but when it happens between teammates, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So if you can believe it, I wrote a law review piece for the Harvard Negotiation Law Review on clubhouse relationships and how players try to interact in clubhouses, and it can be insanely toxic. But one of the areas that I talked about in this law review article was that talking out of school to the media about it is what elevates the problem more than anything else. So, I talked to, Reggie Jackson was sort of famous for, if he get in a fight, going out and then talking badly about his players. So I'm definitely aligning with David on this. To the extent that there may have been fisticuffs, there may have been any sort of problem, the fact that they kept it in-house is the key to dealing with these sort of situations.
Okay, one last bit of the news roundup, and that is the man, the legend that was Bartolo Colon, 5-year anniversary of his first home run.
I did some investigating because obviously it was the 5-year anniversary of his big home run in San Diego, which if you listen to Gary Cohen, who's the renowned Mets play-by-play man on SNY, he will tell you that it's one of the greatest moments in franchise history. I do agree. It was a phenomenal moment, not just for the Mets, but all of baseball. But in some of the tweets that I was reading about the anniversary, I kept seeing Padres fans respond in that this was a home run that helped change their franchise forever. And I said, what is that all about? I mean, I wasn't aware of anything like that. So I said, I did some Google searching, and I discovered that apparently the person who dealt the home run to Bartolo Colon was James Shields, who was a pitcher, a longtime pitcher who began his career with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, or the Rays. And then eventually he wound up in San Diego, and he threw this pitch. He was on in his career. He threw this pitch to Colon, and Colon hit a home run. And then that, according to Padres fans, was the beginning of the end of Shields. This was his, the start of his downfall. He did go out and pitch 7 innings, shutout ball the next outing, but he kind of lost all his stuff. He was eventually traded to the White Sox for who? Fernando Tatis.
Oh.
So this, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but Padres, look, in baseball, it's fine to have a little bit of a stretch. That's the fun. So there are Padres fans who think that home run to Bartolo Colon changed the course of the San Diego Padres franchise forever.
And if Bartolo Colon does decide to come out of retirement or somehow get picked up by a Major League Baseball team, he will be truly the last Montreal Expo. Moving on.
The second better up, and it's minor leagues. They are back. The last minor league game, JC, 19 months ago. Sacramento River Cats beating the Columbus Clippers for the AAA National Championship. So why is this so important for baseball right now that the minor leagues are back? Because you are their greatest champion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled for the players. I'm thrilled for the communities that still have minor league baseball. There's no doubt about that. But it's certainly bittersweet for so many reasons. Major League Baseball has clamped down and are now controlling minor league baseball in a way that is going to suck a lot of the fun out of it. One of the things that made minor league baseball so great is that you'd have these maverick owners in these small towns, and they would do things that were innovative and fun. With Major League Baseball involved, you're going to see less of that. You're going to see it more as a petri dish for Major League Baseball. And we're going to see that with rule changes, the bigger bases that David's so excited about, robo umpires, having to step off the mound to throw to first base. We're also seeing things like host families, which when I played in the Frontier League, I stayed with a host family, huge part of sort of bringing the community and the team together. That's been cut out. The players are not getting more money. I can't think of a time more when minor league players are put in such a terrible position. And so that breaks my heart. On the flip, and there are obviously fewer communities. All these teams have been culled. So there are parts in the West where, not the far West, but, you know, in certain areas of the West where you're not having minor league teams anymore. All that's heartbreaking. But for the places that have it back, there is nothing more intimate and more enjoyable to me than going to a minor league game compared to even a major league game. There's something about that sort of community feel that is unique to minor league baseball, and I'm thrilled that it's back for that reason.
I mean, just playing devil's advocate here, I appreciate, you know, your thoughts about the uniqueness of it and the atmosphere. I've been to two and love both, absolutely love both. But I mean, in terms of creating some structure that is consistent, all 30 major league teams now having 4 full season minor league affiliates, I mean, that sort of makes sense to me. I mean, it was a bit like when they brought Houston over to the AL to make sure that all the divisions were now 5 teams. It always seemed a bit odd that we had one with 4, one with 6. You know, it does, that sort of thing does make sense. But are you worried that that structure just means excessive control that is ultimately going to suck the joy, the uniqueness of it?
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a commissioner for minor league baseball who would look out for the concerns and interests, not just of the owners, but the whole process. And that's now being totally sidelined just to make sure that the potentates at the major league level get what they want out of it. It's one of the more disgusting elements of baseball is how minor league players are treated. As you know, I worked as a representative, an agent for players and primarily minor league players for a long time. And looking what they had to go through, even when there was more flexibility, even when there was more of an effort to take care of them within the community, now Major League Baseball is sort of throwing even those small elements that made it easier to the side.
And Johnny, you talk about things, you know, needing to make sense. Part of the beauty of minor league baseball is that it didn't always make sense. You know, there were some, it wasn't perfect in the imperfections of the system. And it's nice for some things not to be completely homogenized. And already we're seeing on the front page of MLB.com, you know, the perfect road trip, you know, in the way that they're marketing it. And it's all kind of part of their master plan. But the other side, apart from all the stuff that Josh brought up just now, one of the good things about having minor league baseball back is, hey, we're going to have prospects playing in real games again. We're going to have a chance to see players who, you know, some of the biggest fans of the game have wondered, you know, how they're going to perform. We've been waiting for that for, you know, well over a year now. And now they will be getting a sample of performance from players instead of, you know, figuring out how they're playing in small little mini games on alternate sites. So this is part of the restoration of post-COVID baseball life.
Well,
is minor league baseball back
and to your point, David, it's not just that we get to see them, but they get to develop. I mean, it's essential that the pipeline continues to move and those players get better. Otherwise, you're not going to have the level of play on the field at the major league level. Of course. We always talk about hope springs eternal when we get to the spring, and a lot of that has to do with the major league level, but a lot of it has to do with who's on the farm, who's going to get better. Every single club, I promise you, if you are a fan of every single team, any single team, there is a player out there who you're dreaming on, that they're going to come to the major league level and they're going to be the difference maker.
I'll tell you right now, Mets fans have their eyes on Jared Kelenic, that horrific deal that they made for Cano and Edwin Diaz. He's like, I think, the 3rd or the 4th best prospect in all of Major League Baseball. He's with the Seattle Mariners. He's going to be brought up, I would say, probably by the end of May, as the speculation is. And Met fans are watching to know just how deep they should shove the knife into their gut to watch who could have been potentially one of the most glorious prospects to ever walk into Queens, now playing in Seattle, so we can have Cano sitting out on a dope charge.
Okay. Is there anything about the rule changes that they're going to be experimenting in the minors? Anything that you like or anything that you particularly hate? You don't have to, you can choose one or t'other. JC?
Well, I mean, I think David's going to talk about the bigger bases. That's one of them. I know that what they're trying to do is to get more stolen bases. So you have a couple of different rules that they're considering. You know, I'm fine to give it a shot. The one that I'm most interested in seeing is the robo umpire calling balls and strikes, because I'd like to see if that really does make a difference. I know, VAR has been such a failure in football, and people say that, when you start doing that, you actually miss some of the nuances. So I'd like to see whether that works in baseball.
Yeah.
Josh, is one of the rule changes to lower the strike zone? Because John Smoltz was talking about that the other day. It's so hard for hitters to keep up with the high fastballs going 95 and above, that if they were to just shift the strike zone down, it might be able to give hitters the edge that they needed. I wonder if they're trying that out in the minor leagues.
To me, the two rules that should be considered is lowering the mound again. I mean, that worked in 68. Or after 68. So I think that we could do that again. And that doesn't change the dimensions of the sport, and potentially changing the strike zone. I think you want to have the same size. You don't want to tighten it, because then you're going to get more walks. But if you do lower it a little bit, perhaps that might help.
Yeah, just
those
shift.
are the two rules to me that work a lot better than some of these other concepts.
Eric, I heard somewhere that AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, says that everybody in Detroit is replaceable, which means that we may see a fair few prospects coming Detroit's way.
It can't hurt. The worst team in baseball right now. They're on pace to tie the New York Mets 19 record.
Lay off. That's ours.
Is there still single digits in the win column? So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of shuffling coming up and down.
And they started well.
But they have some of their biggest name prospects already up in them. Casey Mize, who's a great pitcher, Kyle Funkhauser. I mean, these were guys who were expected to be frontline pitchers, and the fact that it's not getting done with some of these guys already up there is disturbing. Yeah.
Well, we welcome back the minor leagues.
Okay, well, moving on to the third batter of the inning, and it didn't age very well. For those of you that weren't with us last week, Dave sent in what can only be described as a classic Lengel rant about the demise of the Yankees, that they're no longer nasty, they're boring, they're not interesting, and of course they were struggling as well. The big question is, Big Dave, have you actually caused a sort of reverse jinx? Because it seems that since you ranted, the Yankees have started to find their swing. It's almost like they're finding a resurgence on the back of your negativity. You will be regretting this for the rest of the season if they suddenly go on a charge and make it all the way to the postseason.
I don't think so. First of all, the rant was about how the franchise has sort of changed course and become one of the more ordinary franchise in baseball, as opposed to being something special. That's what the rant was, and that's not going to change. First of all, yes, Stanton started hitting recently, but Aaron Judge, who's kind of was supposed to be the face of that franchise, I think coming into Saturday was 1 for 13 in his last 13 at bats, including 9 strikeouts. But I think what you saw this week was more to do with the Astros coming into town and there being an interesting storyline. And the storyline is not the Yankees. It's the Astros coming into town. If the Astros don't come into town, there's still nothing going on. This was an opportunity for the fans to formally protest against the Astros cheating scandal, in which they thought they were affected in the 2017 ALCS. And the fans got their chance, and it did create a playoff environment, and it was a lot of fun, even though Dusty thought that everybody should be done with it already. That was good and that was fun, but it was not fun because of the Yankees. It was fun because the Astros came into town. Now we're back into normal times. You've got, you're still dealing with guys like Hicks and Frazier providing no production in the outfield, and you're still dealing with a franchise that brought no sizzling, sexy free agents in during the off season. Didn't spend, complained about losing money. This is not the Yankee way. We still got Reggie Jackson wearing a Houston Astros hat, which I saw this week, which was ridiculous. And there's just the Mets have fights in the tunnel, and a new owner who wants to spend. And we've got some.
Okay. David, I love you. You're the best pundit on this podcast, bar none. I'm giving you that. But you're just so wrong on this. It's just so silly how wrong you are on this, my friend. What makes the Yankees mystique, what makes them the team that people are interested in, are twofold. One, with all due respect to your Mets, they're the most popular team in the biggest market. And two, they win. And when they win, it doesn't matter who's playing on the field. Those players will be lionized. Those players will be stars, whether it's Garrett Cole or Corey Kluber, who's playing a lot better. The Yankees will be relevant as long as they win. And the players who you say are boring or not interesting will be elevated by the back page of the New York Post, by the Daily News, and by the media in general, because that is the nature of the Yankees. They are the most winning team in the history of this sport. And whenever they're doing well, the discussion will be there.
Baseball's moved on. Baseball's with Ohtani now. Baseball's with the Dodgers and the Padres. There's other stuff going on. It's not all about the Yankees.
The media will get a big crowbar. They will open it up for the Yankees if the Yankees are winning. I'm sorry. It will always be the case. It is the nature of the Yankees, the nature of baseball.
We'll see.
Boys, as you know, I love to sit on a fence, and I'm seeing arguments on both sides here that I agree with. But I do have to say, JC, given the strength of your point that you've just made, that I think Dave's right in terms of the characters, in terms of the personalities. I don't really feel like I know any of them. I don't really buy into any of them. And I think back to the glory years, certainly when we were doing the show and they were dominating, the Jeters, the Andy Pettits, the Mariano Rivera's. I mean, that
whoa. You are revisionist in the highest order here, because Jeter was as milquetoast as any player who played the game. That was his shtick. His shtick was, I don't do anything. I am not, I'll play the game. And, if I am athletic and I have
still
my
had the boss.
And Pettit was Jeter. Quiet. Mariano was not. These guys were not great interviews. These guys were not dynamic in terms of their personalities.
I'm not saying they were.
And I said this last week too. They were stars because the Yankees were consistent winners.
Yeah, but
the only player on that team that was exciting.
Josh.
Hold on, Dave. The only player on that team that was exciting was the period when Roger Clemens was there and he's throwing bats at Piazza. But the rest of the team was, Robbie Cano even. Go back, look at this. None of these guys were players who you loved because of their personality. You loved because.
But I'm not talking about their personality, JC. I'm talking about their aura of invincibility.
Right, because they won. You're supporting my point. You're supporting my point 100%, which is if the Yankees win, the same attitude will occur around Stanton, around Judge, around Cole. Okay. It's all a reflection of winning.
So when was the last time they were real winners? When was the last time you went into a matchup and thought, no, I haven't got a hope. They will win. I don't feel that. Whenever the Braves are playing the Yankees, I feel just as positive that we're going to win as I do against anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, they've had periods in their history. I mean, the 1980s when Don Mattingly was there, that people felt that way. But I'm saying that the mystique is there when they win. They have a chance, to be honest, to be good this season still. I think we were premature in talking about their death, and we'll see.
Why?
I think you get it.
Josh, why? First of all, two things. In the 80s, they stunk after 81. They didn't win anything for 15 years or something. They stunk. And they were still on the back page every day. And they had, that's
because you lived in New York, Dave. You're living in your New York bubble there because they weren't relevant at all. No one talked about them other than in New York. And Mattingly was elevated because he was Mattingly, but the rest of the team, they had Winfield.
And they had Steinbrenner.
And point number two. Sorry, Eric. Point number two. Why are the New York Yankees trying to be the Tampa Rays? Why they're trying to one-up the Rays? They're starting openers in Game 2 of the ALDS. They did it again this year. These are the New York Yankees. They should be bullying their way to winning, and they're trying to emulate the team with the 25th ranked payroll. I mean, what is going on over there?
You sound like you're 75 and you're yelling, "Get off my lawn, Dave."
No,
seriously, the game has changed. Move with the game, Dave.
No way. Sorry.
No way. Moving on.
Okay, well, I really enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that too.
Two heavyweights going head to head. Fantastic. I'm going to call it a draw. All right, it's seventh inning stretch, which is, thank God for that. We can all relax. We can all take a chill pill. And let's get over to the man who's so chilled, he's horizontal. Eric, over to you.
It is the baseball book of the week. And I just thought this would be a good opportunity because of the announcement by Thomas Boswell, who is a esteemed, renowned baseball writer. He's announced his retirement from writing about baseball after 52 years covering the sport. And Thomas Boswell, it's one of those things that it only dawned on me. It's like, wow, actually, he was one of the reasons where I really started getting into baseball. I was already into baseball at my youth, but there was a book called Why Time Begins on Opening Day that he published in the early 80s that I read and enjoyed as a child, teenager, should I say. And also Why Life Imitates the World Series is another one of his books, which I thoroughly recommend to anybody having on the bookshelf. And one of our panelists here has actually met Mr. Thomas Boswell.
I had the opportunity to actually interview Mr. Boswell on a couple of occasions, and you won't find a more eloquent, first of all, a more eloquent writer, and a nicer guy who sat down with me for several hours to talk not just about baseball but about all sports. So he was a master of all sports for the Washington Post, in addition to being an author. And when you think about Boswell, at least this is what I think of. And I think we've mentioned this on the show before, but Boswell was the first guy to bring up steroids and the use of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball with Jose Canseco on television back in 1988. And he was universally panned for it early on. But he was right on the money right there. And that's one of the things I won't forget about Thomas Boswell.
We talk about players and how they're a connection to our past. We were discussing Willie Mays, but the writers who cover baseball actually even play a greater role in us understanding the fabric of baseball over time. I think of Shirley Povich, who was another great Washington Post writer, Jim Murray with the LA Times, Roger Angel. So these people are the ones that are, the heralds to what had happened in the past and to understand it in the context of the present. Thomas Boswell was amongst that group in that pantheon. And those people are really important. And I worry with journalism in the United States becoming a lesser and lesser role. There are fewer beat writers who travel with teams nowadays. That when we look to the next generation, that you won't have the Thomas Boswells around anymore to tell us about what right now meant 20 years down the road. And I hope that's not the case, but that's why we need to revere these people.
And if you look at what's further to your case about journalism and the coverage of baseball, if you look at the New York Times today, you will not find coverage of last night's Yankees or Mets game. And baseball is purely covered on a national level, but not even that much. So I think that's a grave concern, is that some of the biggest outlets in the United States don't have a kind of storytelling columnist who's out there just to kind of, for the record, spin beautiful stories about a game that we all love.
There was a reason why at the start of the 20th century, all these idioms came from baseball. You hit a home run, you're swinging for the fences. All that came from the writers of that period, the Ring Lardners of the world, Damon Runyon, who wrote about baseball in a way that was poetic. And when you lose those, you lose that connection between baseball and the popular culture that makes baseball less relevant. And this is true with all sports. I think this is something to be concerned about. The writers play such a role in that.
I may not be particularly familiar with his writing, but obviously I'm aware that he's a National Sports Media Association Hall of Famer. But I'm already liking the man because he also wrote for Esquire, GQ, and Playboy. No doubt that was where you came across him, Eric. So
I know you only read Playboy for the articles, right, Johnny?
Absolutely. There are articles.
Moving on, basically the bottom line is I kind of wish I could meet and be close to somebody who wrote baseball books. I don't know. Pop culture and baseball, when they intertwine. And because last week we talked about Naked Gun, and the week before that we talked about Airplane, I figured let's do a trifecta and let's do Police Squad. Now, we have mentioned Tommy Lasorda before, appearing on the TV series Police Squad with Leslie Nielsen, a hilarious scene where Leslie Nielsen goes up to the shoe shine guy who has a word on the street, and he always hands him a bill and said, hey Johnny, you know anything about this kidnapping? Yeah, word on the street says that, blah 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 blah. And then inevitably every week, and there's always a visit to Johnny the shoe shine guy, and then whenever Frank Drebin leaves, there's always a celebrity comes in after and sits in the seat afterwards. In this one episode, Tommy Lasorda sits down and he goes, hey Johnny, I'm having trouble with my rotation. You know how it can help me? And he goes, maybe I can, maybe I can't. And so he hands him a bill, and this is a little time capsule. And he goes, where Johnny goes, listen. He looks over his shoulder. The rigors of a full season causes a lot of havoc on a 4-man rotation. You should consider a southpaw to add to a fifth, starter in your rotation. You wouldn't be in this mess if you didn't get rid of Tommy John. And then Tommy Lasorda is like, all upset. It's hilarious. We'll post that as well. But
I'd like to see that. I've never seen that.
It's great. It's a great bit. It's really funny.
It's hilarious.
I've never seen that clip. I've never seen it.
Oh, that bit's a good one.
If you look at the Johnny and Josh Twitter, Facebook, they will be there eventually. Now, one thing after I sort of, said, okay, yeah, Tommy Lasorda, hilarious guy, crosses over into pop culture, made the game famous because not only was he on Police Squad, but I had to look him up. He was actually in like 13 other TV shows in his tenure as Dodgers manager, and even beyond. Did you know that he was he appeared in like Fantasy Island? I mentioned that last season, but he appeared in Heart to Heart. He appeared on Everybody Loves Raymond. He appeared on an episode of Chips, California Highway Patrol.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he was reflective, right, of the Dodgers. I remember Don Drysdale being on the Brady Bunch, and it was like a huge episode. Dodger players, Piazza, I'm sure, did stuff when he was with the Dodgers. That's always, you talk about mystique, David, and what keeps teams relevant. That was a huge part of it. And Tommy Lasorda was at the top of the list. That guy put the HAM in ham.
We need that now. We need more of that. Baseball needs that.
Crossover into pop culture.
Get more involved with popular culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't agree more.
And there's Tommy Lasorda making us laugh even to this day after he passed away a few months ago. Moving on. Trivia. Well, I asked you earlier about Mr. Albert Pujols, and if you had a chance to cogitate of what I asked you already about when he won the 2003 NL batting title. He only won it by 0.0002 of a percentage. Against whom? Was it A, Barry Bonds? Or was it B, Todd Helton? Or is it C, Larry Walker?
I'm going with B, Todd Helton, just simply because I remember all those years ago trying to focus on getting him into my fantasy team purely for his average. So that's why I'm going with Todd Helton.
Right.
I hate to agree with Gouldy. I'm pretty sure it's one of the Rockies guys. I think it was Helton, though. I actually think he's right. But
you say that like it's the most pained reality, the fact that you've got to agree with me.
Yes, it is the most pained reality. Correct.
What about you, Dave?
We're probably both wrong anyway, Gouldy.
I could tell you that it feels incredible to not agree with Johnny on this. I'm going to go with Larry Walker because I think that's Eric's angle going for the Canadian former Expo.
Okay.
Though Eric, afterwards, you have to tell our Todd Helton story.
Yes, that'll come later. So I guess I can do in any particular order because there's no point. But Larry Walker won the batting title in 2001, but didn't finish runner-up in 2003.
Okay. Hard luck, Dave. Move over.
Neither did Barry Bonds.
Yes.
Who only hit 341. That year. But the answer is correct. Todd Helton hit 358.5, while Pujols hit 358.7. So they round up. It
feels great being wrong, knowing that I didn't agree with Johnny.
Well, here's
I know I had to pay the price to get it right, Dave. It hurt.
The interesting thing about that season as well, on the last day of the season, on his last at bat, the Cardinals games already finished, whatever they were. So already Pujols already had 3.597, and on his last at bat, in his last game of the season, Todd Helton was intentionally walked.
Ooh. That's brutal.
So whether he would have hit, if you would just got a base hit or a bunt, he would have surpassed Albert Pujols that season. So,
but we got to quickly tell our Todd Helton.
It's the only time. It's the only time that the Albert Pujols won a batting title in his whole career, and that was
you said that.
0-2. Todd Helton actually went because Josh and I we went down when the Rockies were in Tucson, Arizona for spring training. and we were able to get I guess I'll say it politely. Todd Helton was exactly the easiest guy to get an interview with or interview.
I think this was the spring training, by the way, after that season. I think it was 2004.
It must have been 2000. Oh, yes. Even more reason for him to be disgruntled. And Josh will tell the rest.
So we go up to him. We're like, hey, Todd, can we just get a quick interview? We're from British television. And he looks just totally annoyed. Sort of looks around and says, I got to go shoot my crossbow. And we're like, what? It's like, yeah, I got to do some crossbow shooting, maybe after. We watch it and we're like, okay, this has to be a lie. Where's he going in Tucson to do some, is he shooting javelina in the, the foothills? What's he doing? Goes into a batting tunnel and he has set up a styrofoam deer. And he, to his word, was shooting his compound crossbow, working on his other game.
And did he come back and give you the interview after the crossbow?
He did.
He
did?
Yeah.
That
so
sounds
that
right.
wasn't a line. He actually came back. He did it.
We saw it.
He had to shoot his crossbow. Yeah.
And did you ask? That's amazing. I can't believe that wasn't BS. I can't believe it.
And it's so ridiculous that it has to be true, right? And it was just Josh and I couldn't believe it. It's like he's actually shooting a fake plastic deer.
This was at the end of old school spring training, right? Like Tucson's location, this was such a small little ratty area. You figured they had to find something to do. This wasn't like, these beautiful built out spring training sites that we have today.
It was a different ball. It was, Vero Beach. It was different.
Yeah, exactly.
Fort Lauderdale.
Excellent. Yep. Moving on.
Okay, guys, we're moving to the mailbag, and as always, it's great to hear from people. We've certainly had a few questions this week. We never have a lot of time, so I'm going to focus on those that we've not had before. So first up on Twitter, Niall Gray, and Niall asks, guys, what's your favorite regular season baseball moment of all time? And the reason why I wanted to get Niall's in was that he referenced the Bartola home run as one of his all-time favorites, and that's where I saw the video. So great shout out to Niall. Thank you for your tweet. Any thoughts, boys? Your favorite baseball moment of all time? Do you have a single one that sticks out?
Does it have to be major leagues?
No.
I love the Pawtucket game that went 25 innings over 2 days. I remember following that as a kid and thinking, this is the most amazing thing. This game is never going to end. I thought that was just sort of a really unique moment in baseball.
Dave, any thoughts?
I was in the upper deck of Shea Stadium for the Endy Chavez catch in Game 7 of the 2006 National League Championship Series.
It's regular season. Did you listen to the question, buddy?
Oh, regular season. No,
I don't know. Well, he said favorite regular season.
Yeah, he said favorite regular season. Neither of you guys are listening. Come on, boys.
Oh,
that's easy. You want to go postseason? A million.
I missed that bit. I beg your pardon. I'll tell you what. The Johan Santana no-hitter happens. The Mets hadn't had a no-hitter in 50 years of their franchise or whatever it was. It might have been 54 years. And I'm on the couch crying like a baby, like, oh, no-hitter. My wife comes down the steps. She looks at me. She goes, you are a disgrace. You didn't cry at our wedding. You didn't cry when your first child was born. You're a mess. Get out of here. I said, I know the Mets longer.
Hey, but I'm done. You set that up nicely. Yeah, that was good.
Well, obviously, I've not got anything like the extensive experience that you guys have. So I'm thinking back to road trip experiences, and I've got two very quick ones. I think it was 2008 All-Star game. We were watching the home run derby. Was that the one where was it Josh Hamilton, the guy that? And he
we were
was
all
hitting
together.
those.
We were all there.
Do you remember, guys? And the hair was on the back of my neck because he was hitting them literally out of the stadium. They were so enormous, his home run hits. I always remember thinking, and he'd had so many problems in his life, which continued sadly. But when he hit a baseball, my God, it was an act of beauty. Eric, have you got any thoughts? Anything about any memories of the Expos?
Yeah, I do actually. I was actually, when we were going to Montreal, obviously, and I was able to convince a bunch of my school mates to skip school on the Expos home opener when Pete Rose was with us for a brief period, because he was still on 3999. I said, guys, we got to go in the home opener. So we skipped school went and we saw base hit number 4,000 for Pete Rose in the next Expos uniform.
Wow.
And the next day, the principal went up to me, and he knew where I was. He said, Eric, you weren't in school yesterday. And I said, oh, that disappointment. And he goes, Eric, there was a lot of other people who didn't come to school yesterday. I know they were all at the Olympic Stadium, and I was expecting like a major, like, you know, reprimand, detention, all this. And he said, but you know what? No one's ever going to see anybody hitting 4,000 ever again.
Yeah,
so I'll let you off. I wish I was.
Wow.
And that was.
Oh, what a great story.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who else hit there? Who's the famous player that hit their 3,000th hit at Olympic Stadium?
Tony Gwynn.
There you go, Tony Gwynn.
I wasn't there.
One quick other mention is to the UK Rays fan. JC, I'll get you to answer this one. He said he's playing in our rookie league. This is the behind home plate rookie league that we've set up. He said, I've noticed how few steals there are. Is it all down to analytics? Seems a shame, as in the days of the legend that was Ricky Henderson, they were such a fun part of the game. Is it all down to analytics that people are just saying now that it's not a positive outcome, even if
Sure. I mean, and this is what Major League Baseball is trying to change. This is why they're trying to expand the bases, change how you can pick off runners at first base for this very reason. So our smart listener there is in tune with what Major League Baseball is thinking needs to be changed about the game.
Can you imagine that if Ricky Henderson was playing today, how would that work? A generational talent with incredible base running skills. Would they have let him loose? You have to wonder. I have no idea.
130 stolen bases in one season. I tell you what, that wins the whole category in fantasy. I love that Ricky boy. Anyway, moving on. Thank you very much for getting in touch. Do want to hear from you. We'll always try and get at least a couple in. And a big shout out, obviously, for anybody that wants to check out our other podcasts, all part of the Ted Fred platform. And that is, of course, Behind Our Own Plate for you fancy baseball nuts out there. The Twitter handle @BHPPod. We've got other shows as well. Eric's doing a great job on Slapshot Smack Talk. The Twitter handle for that is @Slapshot Talk.
That's right. The NHL playoffs are coming soon. There'll be a preview show imminent.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. We look forward to checking it out.
And don't forget to click below. Johnny, if you do your pointy. David, you joined the pointy brigade, David.
We're all doing a pointy. It looks possibly obscene, but hopefully you know what we're doing.
Click
right
like.
There, baby.
Click
right
subscribe
there.
is there. No, wait, subscribe is there.
And obviously don't forget also the Nat Coombs Show. Don't forget the Nat Coombs Show. We've got the Nat Coombs Show at the NC. That's not the National Center of, it's the NC Show. That's the @NC Show, Nat Coombs. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's all happening. Do get in touch. Do subscribe. Do like. Or not, if you don't want to. That's completely your choice. No, we want them to, but we can't force them to. We want them to do it by...
Podcasts aren't free. We need you to subscribe to these things.
Absolutely. Boys, I know you've got loads to get on with, so thank you for your time tonight. Any thoughts before we go?
Have a good week, Gouldy.
Thank you.
I hope your tan sticks from Bahrain. You got that Bahrain tan.
I'm indoors for 5 days. I've got no choice of getting it. I'm certainly not going to be washed off, that's for sure. Boys, always a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you for listening. You've been a part of episode 7 of the Johnny and Josh Show. Until next week, stay safe.